I know. I was about to make that joke, but I was waiting for someone else to make
Balance is important.
What's that? Well, I appreciate you saving space for me to use.
it. Yes.
What's happening here? How am I tangled in my cord? Just me tonight, guys. Just me.
Good luck.
I'm not concerned. Good luck to you guys. Welcome to Valentine's Day, Shabbat. We'll start with Hinei Matov. There's a couple of things we're going to do a little bit differently tonight. I'll explain as we get there. We have to acknowledge that, Tu B'Shvat was this week. A couple of other things. So we're on page, what is it? Hinei Matov is on page 8, but you all probably know it already. Oh!
Yeah.
That'd be rather important.
Yeah.
All right, so 85 was in here, and so I left earlier this way. So I'm going to get Lucy to read, because that would be really helpful. It's all right.
No, 85 is this. No.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I never know. I don't know what
I'm not.
What's girls? Interestingly, only 40% of it.
You are right.
Yeah, they're not technically allowed to be.
No.
Yeah, well.
I'm going to put these down and say that we'll drop them. I don't know anymore.
You guys want to see the read?
But if y'all want to come get a Siddur, I want to find more. We're going to have 8.
Words of.
How many more do I need?
It's my turn.
Right. All right, now we're on page 8.
He said.
Hinei Matov u'manayim sheberachim gam yachad. Hinei Matov u'manayim sheberachim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hinei Matov u'manayim sheberachim gam yachad. Hinei Matov u'manayim sheberachim gam yachad. Welcome. We're going to do something a little bit different for a second. For those of you who were here last week, I had my phone out, which I don't normally do during services because my sister-in-law was in labor and she gave birth on Sunday, actually. And so if we could turn to page 858, we could say Shehechianu for my nephew.
You say 858?
858, way at the back of the Siddur. His first Shabbat. And you probably know it, so you don't need to look anyway. But Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. And we'll now go all the way to the front of the Siddur, page 12 for Yedid Nefesh. Probably, if I can get there. Yedid Nefesh Avarachama Mishoch Avdecha El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Huaya Ishtachave El Mul Hadarecha Te'erav Lo Yedidutecha Minofet Tzuv B'chol Tam Yadadai dai 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 Yadadai dai 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 Yadadai dai 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 Yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 die. Please turn to page 22 as we continue with Kabbalat Shabbat. In the Chunarana. Lechuniranina, 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 ladonai. Lechuniranina, 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 ladonai. Naria, naria, litzor yishenu, mikadma fanav betoda. Naria, naria, litzor yishenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechuniranina, 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 ladonai. Lechuniranina, 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 ladonai. We go down a little bit down the page to, I think, the third line from the bottom. Give me a second to catch up in English or Hebrew. Right, third line from the bottom. Arba'im shana akut bidor, Omar am toelevav heim, v'heim lo yatu derachai. Asher nishbati v'apihi im yevo'uhun al menuchati. Turn to page 24 for Shiru Ladonai. So I have to do this. I have to do the last line of the melody to get the melody in my head, how to start it. Every week, I have to do it. Shiru ladonai, shir chadash, shiru ladonai, kol haaretz. Shiru ladonai, baruch shemo, basru miyom leyom, yeshuato, sapru v'goyim, kevodo, bechol ha'amim, nifleotav, ki gadol Adonai. Hula meod norahu al kol Elohim yadai kiko Elohe ha'amim elidim va'adonai shamayim asa hod v'hara lehefana oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho. Havu ladonai, mishbechot ha'amim, havu ladonai, kahavu va'os. Havu ladonai, kivod shemo, se'u mincha uvohu, lechatzrotav. We're going to continue. Sorry. Normally, I'm the only one who's singing along to this one. I have other people this week, so it's a little bit disconcerting. I want to, at this point, turn to page, 34, from Mizmor LeDavid. Mizmor LeDavid, havu ladonai b'nei elim, havu ladonai kavod vaos, havu ladonai kivod shemo, ishtachavu ladonai behadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon. Vayakidem kimo egel, Levanon v'sirion, kimo ven rehemim. Kol Adonai chotzef lavot esh. Kol Adonai yachil midbar. Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai yecholel ayalot. Vayachasof yaro duveichalo. Kulo omer kavod. Adonai lamabul yashaf vayeshev Adonai melech leolam Adonai oz le'amo yitain Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. We're going to turn to page 38 and 40 for the Chadodi. We will read every other verse. And on the last verse, and I'll give you this instruction again at that point, we're going to stand and, excuse me, face the rear of the room as if we're welcoming in a bride. Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela Shabbat v'zachor v'tipor echad Shmianu el ha'michad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shem otiferem v'mitiva Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela Lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela. On the third verse, it starts Mikdash. Mikdash melech melucha Mitzi mitocha hafecha Ravak shelepe megabacha Ruach aleichem Lecha dodi Likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela Lecha dodi Likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela. If you'll turn to page 40, the top verse on page 40. Hitoreri, kiva orechu hiori, riuri shir taberi, kivon Adonai like niva, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Third verse on page 40. V'haytu l'shem sasosai, v'rachaku komevolai, yasis alai Elohai, Isos katar na'kala, lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Everyone, please rise and face the rear of the room as if we were welcoming in the bride. Bo v'shalom atzeret ba'ala gam b'simcha u'tzohala toch emunei am segula bohi kala lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Please be seated. I realized the problem when I do this with Jordan, it's on the third fret. So I missed the fret. That's why I missed the harmonic the first time. Please turn. This is going to be a little different on page 726. We're going to read responsibly in English. So we're going to start at the top of the page and go all the way down, kind of skipping the Hebrew in the middle. And God said, let the earth put forth grass, herbs yielding seed, and trees bearing fruit. And God saw that it was good.
Even though you will enter a land of plenty,
This is you guys now.
you will stay in that land. Rather be certain to plant trees, just as you found trees for us planted, so you should plant for your children.
When a tree is wantonly cut down, its voice cries out from one end of the earth to the other.
When you besiege a city, do not destroy its trees. You may eat of them, and not cut them down.
If you were told the Messiah had arrived while you were holding a sapling in your hand, first plant the sapling, then go to greet the Messiah.
Build houses and gardens and eat their fruit.
I will plant in the wilderness, says the Lord, the cedar, the acacia, the myrtle, and the olive tree.
Therefore be glad, O children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God.
Let us honor Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of trees, in our community, in our country, and in Zion restored. So we're at the bottom of the page, you see? As others, there. Let us honor Tu B'Shvat by treasuring our earth, enjoying its yield, concern for its well-being. Let us honor Tu B'Shvat, the new year of trees, by striving for harmony with the world about us. It's always interesting hearing the English come back at me.
I got caught in a reverb.
It's kind of like a reverb. Like it's not all at one time. We're going to finish Kabbalat Shabbat on page 44 in Hebrew. If as long as I can go back there. You can see the English, sort of on the bottom of the page. Adonai malach geut lavesh. Lavesh Adonai oz hitazar. Aftikon tibel bal timot. Nachum kisachem meyaz be'alam atzah. Nasu neharot Adonai, nasu neharot kolam, yisu neharot dochyam. Mikolot mayim rabim, adirim, mishpere yam, adir b'marom Adonai. Erotecha, de'emne meyot, levetcha, de'ava kodesh Adonai, de'orech yamim. At this point, we're turning now to the Mariv, the evening service, which we begin with the call to worship with Baruch Hu. If you'll turn to page, 50, and rise. Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai. You can sing with me. Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai lai, yalla lai lai, yalla lai lai. We'll continue. I need to cut off that quickly. Baruch. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Amevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated. We'll continue with the first blessing before the Shema, which is just in the middle of that page 50. You can read along with me in Hebrew. You see the transliteration at the bottom of the page. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam. Asher bivaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokma potech she'arim v'neh b'shana itif v'machalif et hazmanim v'msader l'kochavim b'mifperotehem b'arker ketzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or ma'avir yom v'vivid layla v'mavdil beinu v'bein layla Adonai tzvaot shemo v'chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. There's one line in there that I cannot ever get because it's where is it? I practice this a bunch. Golel or those two words together trip me up every single time I do this, which is every day. I can't get it. I don't know why. And anyway, page 52 for Avat Olam. Avat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limahadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shokveinu uvkumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה ועבדך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. Turn to page 54 of the Shema. You will please rise. So I've gotten not pushed back. I'm going to stop before the Shema for a second. Apparently, no one else until I started this had ever risen for the Shema. Is that correct? Is that weird?
It's not weird.
Not weird. Weird is a weird word. But it's
different.
It's different. So let me put it this way. If you're more comfortable sitting, I certainly feel no problem with that. But if you want to stand, you stand. We're going to read it together. Shema V'Yahafta together in Hebrew and then in English. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Silent, the next line. V'Yahafta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם ושבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. We'll repeat it in English because I think it's important enough that those of us who do not speak Hebrew fluently should hear it in English as well. On page 55. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Praised be God's glorious sovereignty forever and ever. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. You shall take to heart these words which I command you this day. You shall teach them diligently to your children, speaking of them when you are at home and when you are away, when you lie down at night and when you rise up in the morning. You shall bind them as a sign upon your arm, and they shall be a reminder above your eyes. You shall inscribe them on the doorposts of your homes and on your gates. All right, you can be seated if you are standing. We're going to turn to page 60. Sort of 3/4 of the way down the page from Micha Mocha. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai. Micha Mocha nedar ba'kodesh. Nahura tehilot osef ele. Malchutecha ra'uhu banecha. Bokei hayam lifnei Moshe. Ze Elianu v'yamru. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed v'ne'emar kifata Adonai et Yaakov lo yad chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai Gal Yisrael. We'll turn to 64 for Vishamru. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et Shabbat v'asot et Shabbat v'torah v'ritorah. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et Shabbat Asotet Shabbat Torah Zaberito Bein B'nei Yisrael Oti Be'olam B'shamut B'nei Yisrael Etzak Shabbat Asotet Shabbat Torah Zaberito Ki Sheshet Yamim Asa Adonai and Hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamu b'nei Yisrael etzah Shabbat asot et Shabbat v'torah zaberito uvayom hashvi Shabbat v'inafash Shabbat v'inafash Shabbat v'inafash V'shamu b'nei Yisrael etzah Shabbat v'asotet ha'shabbat v'torah zaberito. All right. I'd like to take a moment to talk about this week's Torah portion. My friends, there's an early episode of Modern Family when Jay is talking about being a father. It's a really early episode, maybe the second or third episode of Modern Family. At the end, in a voiceover, as he's thinking about what it means to be a father, he says 90% of being a father is just showing up. In many ways, I think that's the same kind of thing we see in this Torah portion. And the same thing I think about love. 90% is in many ways just showing up. I've been thinking about this idea in many ways. First of all, it's Valentine's Day. I will say that the Valentines my son gave out at school today were paper airplanes, which I know did not thrill his teacher because no one was allowed to do the paper airplanes in class. I'm guessing teachers hate Valentine's Day in general because you're giving a bunch of kids a whole bunch of candy. So whoever came up with that idea, not great. But when you're thinking about this idea of love, you quickly realize that there's a variety of definitions for the word. It's not one size fits all. For example, I love the band Fish. But this love is different from the love I have for my wife and kids, and it's different from the love I have for the rest of my family. It's different from my love for the Gators, or sushi, or anything else in my life that I enjoy greatly. Now, I am blessed in my life not only to have parents, but in-laws who love me and my family, and I know better. I'm old enough and have experience enough to know better than to take that for granted. And this was also at the forefront of my mind as I was preparing this week, because this parasha is, in my opinion, about the love that Moses, his father-in-law, shows him. And more importantly, we'll unpack this in a little bit, how he shows it. So Yitro, this is Parashat Yitro. Yitro is Zipporah's father. Zipporah is Moses' wife. I forgive you for not necessarily knowing that because she does not appear all that often, which is something we should get into a different time. We haven't really read all that much about Yitro to this point, so his prominence might take us a little bit off guard. But what's clear when you read this is that Moses is happy to see him. They have a relationship. He goes out specifically to meet Yitro as Yitro is approaching, bending low and kissing his feet. There's much rejoicing. Yitro mentions that he's happy that Hashem saved all the Israelites from the Egyptians. This is a warm welcome. And it's, of course, important to recognize here that Yitro is not an Israelite. He's coming, there's an outsider's perspective, which I think is going to play a big role in what happens. Yitro gets there and there's some celebrating. And then the next day, Yitro sees how Moses spends his days, which is basically listening to the endless issues between the Israelites, who, because it's only Moses listening to them, have to wait hours to hear their case heard. Yitro says, I wanted to quote this because I thought it was important. What is this thing that you are doing to the people? Why do you act alone while all the people stand about you from morning until evening? So why am I highlighting this? And in particular, why am I highlighting this on Valentine's Day? There's lots and lots of elements of this parsha that I could highlight. but instead I'm choosing this. And why? It goes back in many ways to something I was saying earlier. There are infinite ways to show love to one another. And here, through his actions, Yitro is showing his significant love for his son-in-law. First of all, I think as he's coming in, there's some benefit to being an outsider in a situation. You have a different perspective. He's not just an outsider. He hasn't been with the Israelites, but he's not an Israelite himself. Aaron and Hur, who had to hold up Moses' arms when the Israelites were fighting Amalek because Moses got so tired, have been with Moses so long that they're maybe too close. They can't see the kind of ridiculous situation Moses had put himself in terms of hearing these cases. Yitro comes in, and right away, this is, I think, 17 verses into this parsha, identifies the issue. But identifying a problem and seeing that someone you love is going through something is much easier than it is to summon the strength to tell them, hey, this isn't right. Maybe it's not that, it's hurting anybody. It's not that they are having a significant problem, but hey, there's an issue here. You probably don't see it. You're going to burn yourself out. It's hard to speak truth to power. It's hard to tell someone you love and respect that their actions need to change. And yes, I know there are times when maybe this isn't an act of love. Maybe you're doing this out of selfishness. Maybe you get something out of bringing another person down, and maybe it's out of self-preservation. But in this case, it seems to me that Yitro embodies the truest meaning of love. He sees someone important to him struggling. Not only that, but he sees it in a way others don't. And he doesn't come at Moses with toxic positivity. Everything's going to be okay. Keep working. It's all going to work out. That doesn't work. No, what Yitro does is he says, Moses, I see you. You're struggling, and you don't have to be. Let me help. Or, to bring back a phrase that we've heard repeatedly, you could argue that Yitro says, Hineni, here I am. And so I hope that all of your lives are filled with love of all varieties, romantic and familial, fraternal and friendly. And I hope that in this next week and going forward, you will find a way to look at someone in your life and say, Hineni. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to turn now to page something. 66, for Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkada v'yitkadash shemei rabba v'amad divrach hirutei v'emlich malchutei b'chayechon uv'yomechon u'chayetecho beit Yisrael b'gala uv'izman kariv v'yemeru Yehei shmei rabba mevorach Olam olam me'amaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei nekudesha v'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata dahamihiran v'yalma v'yemeru. Amen. Everyone, please turn to page 69 and rise for Amida. We'll recite the first page together, and then we'll have time for personal prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha-El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mefig Ula Livnei V'Neihem, L'man shemo b'yahava. Melech ozer u'moshia u'magi. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye metim atarav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem. Mechakel chayim bechesed, mechaye metim berachamim rabbi. Somech noflim verofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato v'shenei afar, micha mocha ba'al kivurot, umido melach. Melech memit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua b'ne'eman atah hachayot metim baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hametim. And please continue silently all the way through page 74 or 75 in English, and no rush, but when you are done you certainly may be seated. In the middle of page 74. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech atom Lecho hashalom, ki ata hu melech adom. Lecho hashalom, shalom Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim. We'll now recite Misha Berach for those in our community who need healing. Remember, it doesn't need to be healing of a physical nature, but it can be. I, as I've had for several weeks, am keeping Rabbi Spector from Mohev and my friend's father, Ben Hardcastle, in my heart. Misheberach avoteinu kor habracha kehi mohuteinu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us sing. Misheberach imotei. Gor habracha me'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us sing. We'll turn to page 118 for Aleinu. And please rise. Not used to singing this much. My voice is it's hanging in there. Let's put it that way.
We're doing what we can.
And Ray, I appreciate it. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol la'ateit gedula liyotzeh breshit shelo asanu g'goyei ha'aratzot v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Noteh Shamayim V'Yosed Haaretz U'Moshe Bikaro B'Shamayim Mima'am U'Shchinatu Zo B'Gavei Meheromim Hu Eloheinu Eheinod Emet Malkeinu Refezulato Katuv betorato v'yadata hayom v'hashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim b'shamayim mima'al v'yal ha'aretz mitachat einod. Turn the page. We're on sort of in the middle of page 120. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai v'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Please be seated. I lied to you about that. Everyone's standing. I talked about this a little bit last week. It's from Mourner's Kaddish. And the reason I said this is I don't know who in the community is mourning or celebrating the yard say, but especially in a crowd this small, I want to make sure that anybody who has a community around them. So, Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Ba'alma, Divra, Chirutei, V'yem Lichmachutei, B'chayachon, V'yom Echon, V'chayet, D'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, U'bizman Kariv, V'yemru, Yahei Shmei Rabbah, Mevarach, Le'olam, U'lamei Almaya, Yit Barach, V'yishtabach, V'yit Pa'ar, V'yit Romam, V'yit Naseh, V'yit Hadar, V'yit Aleh, V'yit Allah, Shmei Kudusha, Le'ela, Min Kol Berchata, V'shirata, Tush B'chata, V'nechamata, Ta'amiran, V'yomah, V'yemru, Yehei Shlama Rabbah, Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleina, V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yemru, Oseh Shalom, B'mramav, V'yaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yemru, Amen. Please be seated. Before we wrap up, a couple of announcements. Tomorrow morning, there's Shabbat services around 10. It's whenever there's a minyan, right? 11:30. I've been told, breaking news, I've been told it's 11:30. Havdalah at 7 p.m. Monday, Hillel is open. There's a blood drive here, 11 to 6. It's in the Hillel parking lot. There's going to be a bus. We're not just taking people's blood. On Tuesday, birthright tabling from 12 to 2 at the Union. Wednesday, there is Arnash's Survivor themed based on Survivor, the TV show. Thursday, mug decorating tabling. That's 12 to 2 on Memory Mall. Thursday is also another Krav and Kesher class. That's at 6:30 in this room. And the next Friday is Greek Life Shabbat. So, Opa. Was that? All right. So I tried this last week. Everyone claimed they did not know Yigdal. Does anyone here actually know? Has anyone heard Yigdal? A little bit. I see a little bit of hands. All right, we're gonna do it. You're gonna hear it, and we're gonna practice because we're not gonna end with the Adon Olam every week. You can follow along in the transliteration on page 127. What's that? Would you prefer Adon Olam?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do Adon Olam. I've been overruled again. Want to do both? Okay, let's do both.
Whoa, I don't know.
Let's just do Adon Olam. We're running late. We're running late for food. Adon Olam. All right, but we are gonna do Yigdal. I promise you, it's gonna happen. 128. Adon Olam, Hashem Allah, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa, V'chetzo Kol. Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'acharei Kichlot Zakol, Levado Yimloch Nara Adon Olam, V'hu Haya, V'hu Hovet, V'hu Yeh B'tifara Adon Olam, Hashem Allah. B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa, V'chetzo Kol. Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Echad, V'ein Sheni, Laham Shelo Lahachbira Adon Olam, V'li Reshit, V'li Tachlit, V'lo Ha'os V'ha'misra Adon Olam, Hashem Allah. B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa, V'chetzo Kol. Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, I had lost count of where I was. V'hu Eli, V'chai Goali, V'tzurchavli B'eit Zara Adon Olam, V'hu Nisi, Umanosli, Manakosi B'yom Ekra Adon Olam, Hashem Allah. B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa, V'chetzo Kol. Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'yahado Afkid Ruchi, V'edi Shan V'ayira Adon Olam, V'im Ruchi Geviyati, Adonai Li V'lo Ira Adon Olam. Shabbat Shalom. Maybe we can please stack your Sidurim sort of where there's already two. And then we'll go next door for dinner. Shabbat Shalom, Mason and Madeline. I love you.
Jeff, I felt like you were running through a forest like a swift gallop.